If you like what I do, consider supporting me on Ko-fi or Patreon. Links in the description. Welcome to Metroidvania Revisited, where I take a look at MVs that have received major updates or DLC and reevaluate them for my tier list. I'm your host, the Metroidvania Guru, and today we're looking at the new DLCs that just dropped for Blasphemous 2. I'm a huge fan of the original Blasphemous, so much so that I may have had my hottest Metroidvania hot take ever in that video. As for MV newcomers, I say dive in. This is one of the best you'll ever play, and if you end up not liking it, then you'll know Metroidvanias aren't for you. Yeah, that's embarrassing. I definitely would like to retract that statement. Blasphemous 1 is not the best Metroidvanias have to offer. But I still believe it deserves the S tier spot due to its unorthodox approach to the genre, on top of it being so freaking awesome. But this video isn't about Blasphemous 1. It's about its stellar sequel's recent DLCs, True Torment and Mea Culpa. The free DLC promises New Game Plus, the expansion of existing biomes, a new freaking ability, as well as a ton of other new stuff. But the paid DLC, that gives us the titular Mea Culpa, Penitente's original weapon from the first game, as well as 2 new biomes and, most intriguingly, another ending. At launch, Blasphemous 1 wasn't S tier material, but it was still great. I'd have placed it in maybe the A tier, honestly. But with the release of the Wounds of Eventide DLC, the game was pushed into the higher echelons of the S tier. Why? The expansion of existing biomes, the addition of new biomes, an alternate ending, and the subsequent journey to get there. Do you see where I'm going with this? Blasphemous 2's DLC almost one-for-one reflects the original game's Wounds of Eventide DLC. Needless to say, I have some pretty high expectations for Blasphemous 2's DLC. I wasn't doing ratings on my channel when Blasphemous 2 first released, but I would have given it a solid 9 out of 10. As for its rating on the tier list, it landed in the mid to high A tier, which is an outstanding placement. But will this new DLC do what it did for the original game and push Blasphemous 2 into the S tier?
24 hours later.
You can probably tell from the time lapse that I replayed Blasphemous 2 from scratch. I heard the new DLC adds about 6 more hours of gameplay. I can't confirm, but that sounds about right. Anyway, I played Blasphemous 2 from stem to stern because I wanted to experience the game all over again in order to see how all these new DLC aspects were implemented. I was hoping for the new content to interweave with the base game seamlessly, just like how the original game did with its DLC. And I was not disappointed. Blasphemous 2's DLC fits into its base game snugly and organically, which is ideal if you want your game to feel truly enhanced. For contrast, take a look at Prince of Persia's DLC. Its DLC added a sequestered biome that didn't even touch the other biomes and thus felt tacked on and unimpactful to the overall game. Don't get me wrong, I loved Mask of Darkness. It was fun and brought some more lore as well as capped off one of the Immortal stories. I just like it when DLC feels like it was always there. And that's how Blasphemous 2's DLC feels. None of that go to an NPC and activate the DLC crap. Everything added to Blasphemous 2's DLCs appear organically in the game, making for delightful discoveries for people replaying the game and natural feeling occurrences for first-timers. To me, this kind of organicity is what all DLC should strive for. Continuing with praise, the game's overall platforming has reached new heights, sometimes literally. Some of the stuff you have to pull off with the Mea Culpa's new skill is so freaking fun, and the new green pot mechanic where you phase platforms in and out of existence is pretty neat. And I'm not just saying that because it gives me some Guacamelee vibes. I wouldn't say any platforming sections are going to make you sweat, but they are definitely going to make you pay attention so you don't slip up. As for the new biomes and the expansion of previous biomes, the devs nailed it. The new biomes were integrated organically, were visually pleasing, and they had interesting gimmicks to help them stand out. And the expanded biomes, namely the Choir of Thorns and the Labyrinth of Tides, went from being tiny little transition areas into full-fledged biomes of their own right, with all sorts of things to discover. It was as surprising as it was impressive. Now, that's not to say the new DLC is perfect. I've read the DLC's reception from people on Reddit and from different Discord servers, and it seems there were a few players who encountered some pretty nasty bugs. From quests not working as intended, to items randomly disappearing from their inventory to soft locks. Fortunately, I can't personally speak to any of these bugs, as the game played flawlessly for me on the Nintendo Switch. Well, I came across one bug, but it was more silly than devastating. And a lot of people, including myself, are disappointed with the New Game Plus. We were expecting some carryovers from our previous runs. You know, because that's how New Game Plus works. Instead, the game just adds the option to play the game with handicaps and stuff, just like the original Blasphemous. Apparently, you get rewards for completing the game while these handicaps are on, but I haven't done it. You probably get skins, more backgrounds for the background selector, and the ability to actually bring stuff over from the previous runs. I'll probably not be doing any of this. I'm going to get into some specifics that could be construed as spoilers for Blasphemous 2 and are definitely spoilers for Blasphemous 1. So if you'd like to skip these potential spoilers, go to this timestamp to fast travel to my final thoughts. Alright, I'm just going to start shotgunning some things here. First, though I loved the DLC, I can't help but be disappointed in the lumps of gold quest. This quest is one of those the journey is better than the destination things. Searching for the gold and doing the challenging platforming to get the gold was very fun, but the reward actually pissed me off. You get the Traitor's Eye, and it significantly reduces damage from projectiles. Okay, thanks I guess? What an absolute waste from a lore perspective. The area where you take the gold is where the fourth visage resided, the so-called traitor who revealed the truth about the miracle to Penitente. I was expecting some kind of revelation or piece of storytelling that would impact the game's ending, but no, I got a rosary bead I didn't want or need. I had already beaten the game's final boss several times. What the hell is one more bead going to help me with? That brings us to the final boss. No new boss phases. This is incredibly disappointing because Incarnate Devotion might be the worst boss in all of Blasphemous when it comes to difficulty. I was really looking forward to something new and possibly more challenging. I understand the final true boss in the original Blasphemous is basically a playable cutscene with no fail state, but it was still cool to experience and led to one of the most badass moments in MV history. Blasphemous 2 doesn't even give us that. Just the same boss fight with an alternate ending. And how about that new ending? Lore-wise, I loved seeing my girl Chrysanta ascend, and I really loved watching Penitente throw off his helmet in an act that I'm interpreting as abandoning his penitence and shirking the divine machinations he once served. Now that's blasphemous. It works so well because, from what I gathered from the DLC's story, Brother Asterion was just like Penitente, being resurrected again and again in order to be the tool to some divine entity's end. Seeing Penitente come to the realization that he's just a tool and watching him toss his helmet aside is the kind of defiance I like to see in my protagonists. Then we have the final cutscene that's either setting up another DLC or Blasphemous 3. I strongly prefer the latter because I want to see where Penitente goes after abandoning his purpose. That's some real exciting stuff. As for the two new bosses, they were fine. The nun with floating dismembered hands looked like something straight from Blasphemous 1, which was awesome. But I didn't have too much trouble against her. I took her out my second try. As for Brother Asterion, he completely bodied me a dozen times. There were two things that were holding me back during this fight. One, I wasn't fighting him with in-game stats and equipment. And two, most importantly, I thought I had to kill him with the Mea Culpa to get the new ending. After losing to him a bunch, I looked up if I had to use Mea Culpa. When I discovered that using Mea Culpa wasn't necessary, I went in with Veredicto and clobbered him first try. It wasn't even close. Strength build supremacy, baby. And then after that fight, you had to go and fight those weird clones at the weapon statues. I have no idea what that was about. It was kind of stupid and random in my opinion, and these quote-unquote bosses were so easy. They didn't even have their own boss names and life bars. Overall, the true endings path was kind of a disappointment. Just equip the new verse you gain, use the incense you get from burning the envoys, then beat the final boss. I'm not really certain how all that fits together, but whatever. It's all about the journey and not the destination for Blasphemous 2. Blasphemous 2's new DLCs are excellent additions to an already excellent game. A new weapon and new abilities, new and expanded biomes, and a new ending that, by my estimation, brings a new meaning to the word blasphemous and creates new opportunities for the franchise to continue. There were a few misses, like an underwhelming reward for a quest that had some heavy lore implications that weren't explored, lots of bugs, and a lack of changes to the final boss. And the true Torment New Game Plus mode has been universally panned. So much so that the devs have communicated that they're actively working on improving the mode based on player feedback, as well as working on getting rid of those bugs. And you'll love to see devs taking feedback seriously. To end on a high note, I want to praise the seamless way the DLC blends into the base game and how it truly enhances replayability, offering natural discoveries for new and veteran players alike, something I think all DLC should aim for. This finally brings us to Blasphemous 2's placement on the tier list. After the DLCs, I believe Blasphemous 2 has earned its place in the S tier. Thanks for checking out this episode of Metroidvania Revisited. Usually I leave you with a teaser for the next episode, but I couldn't find any Metroidvanias with DLC or major updates coming out in the near future. I'm depending on you all to tell me what MV I should revisit next. Remember, for this series, I'm looking for MVs that have received updates since launch. Leave your suggestions in the comments below. Until next time, nerds.